So what if this was a Republican administration? Would a situation like this be receiving different attention from the mainstream media? For a fair and balanced debate, we're joined by our Washington Insider's Democratic strategist, Zerlina Maxwell, screen left. And on the right, as he always is, Republican strategist Pete Snyder. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
Okay, it has been... Yesterday, Axelrod and company, Zerlina, were talking about how, this whole thing's just become so political, and Mitt Romney has made it that way. But if there's been a cover-up, and it certainly looks to many as if there has been, doesn't it make good sense that we try to get to the bottom of who knew what when, including the president? And that's why Mitt Romney's asking these questions.
Well, I certainly think you're right that we need to get to the bottom of this, but I think it's important for us to investigate and not speculate about what took place in Libya. And I think, when I think about other administrations, whether they be Republican or Democrat, I think back to October 23rd, 1983, an attack on the Marine barracks in Lebanon during the Reagan administration, and that was not politicized. We just focused on mourning the tragic loss of Americans and looking into what caused that horrific event.
Well, Pete, I don't think back then there were calls for more security at the embassy that she's referring to, the bombing there, and they were denied by the State Department. And so that makes this ripe for criticism.
Absolutely, Steve. I just find it appalling that as every day passes, there are more excuses and more inconsistencies and more questions coming out of this administration. I find it absolutely disgusting that Joe Biden stood in front of the nation and looked at Paul Ryan and looked at the moderator and said that they did not know about the request for more security. When is we used by an administration, Joe Biden saying, Michelle, Barack and I didn't know it. Usually when the sitting vice president or president says we, they mean the United States government. So I find it troubling. I also find it troubling that you have on Fox News Sunday Bob Woodward, who's seen a couple cover-ups and smelly situations in his life. When he says something's troubling, that's frankly alarming.
Zerlina, real quickly, don't you think if this were a Republican scandal, the mainstream media would be all over it?
I don't necessarily think that. Just like I was saying, the attack on Libya happened, the attack in Lebanon happened in 1983 under Reagan.
Zerlina,
and I think
this is ridiculous.
We were somber.
The New York Times,
we were just looking into what happened there. I think that the important thing here is that if there was a cover-up, they wouldn't be changing the story when more facts were known.
Well, they certainly are.
They would stick to the original story if they were trying to cover something up.
They're trying to pass this hot potato to Hillary Clinton.
No, I don't
which I just find absolutely appalling. Absolutely. You heard David Axelrod say it was the State Department, and Barack Obama and Joe Biden didn't know about it. There needs to be a thorough media investigation of this. Thank goodness we have Chris Wallace. Thank goodness we have Laura Ingraham. I mean, Scooter Libby had people hanging out of his trees at his driveway. Susan Rice needs that as well.
Well, we'll find out what happens. Zerlina and Pete, we thank you very much for a spirited debate. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, straight ahead on this Monday, the